this is my company and no one is going to care about it the way I do. And so
Yeah.
if I can at least first understand it, then I know how to speak into it. And that was really important.
Today, I'm excited to sit down with Desiree, the founder of Poplinen, a sustainable fashion brand that has been featured on media outlets like Good Morning America, Harper's Bazaar, and Marie Claire. Desiree joins us to talk about how she built Poplinen with a focus on sustainability, ethical sourcing, and empowering women of all shapes and sizes. In this episode, Desiree shares how she landed incredible media features. She also gives us an inside look on her journey of growing Poplinen from the ground up, including sustainable sourcing, the importance of community building, and balancing her roles as an entrepreneur and a mom. So let's get into today's episode with Desiree of Poplinen. Hey, Des, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It's so great having you here.
Yeah, thank you. No, I really appreciate you thinking of me. I think this is an awesome platform. And of course, I love sharing my journey with others who, might find it helpful. But yeah, it's going great. I mean, we're headed into the busiest time of year for retail. So definitely on my toes.
Amazing. It's so funny because when I was thinking about asking you and inviting you on this podcast and preparing for it, I was thinking back to when we met, which was, oh my gosh, I don't even know what year that was at this point. But do you remember the pop up shop that we had in Brentwood, which is where we kind of met each other?
Oh, yes. I do remember that. That was literally, I had just started the concept of Poplin. So
Yes.
being like a week or two later, and our mutual friend Shobha from Proclaim
Yeah.
reached out, like, do you want to do this pop up with me and another friend, Grace made? And I was like, you know what? Why not? Like, let's see how it can happen. And it's a very unique situation, but I'm so glad I did it because I obviously got two wonderful friends slash, mentors slash support to kind of help as I was starting to navigate this world of entrepreneurship, small
Yeah.
business, and direct to consumer.
Yeah, you kind of just hit the ground running there, which it's
Yeah.
funny because like I never knew that. I never knew you had just started, and I don't think I ever got to hear kind of like the story of how Pop Linen came about. So would you mind just like sharing that with us? What was the journey to starting this brand?
Yeah, of course. So my background, I was working in, startups, direct to consumer kind of retail, consumer based
Mm.
brands. And it was really fascinating seeing how these brands went from nothing to, a stable business or, really understanding who their customer is. And it was really fascinating for me because I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. But, meantime, I was, coming of age where I just really was starting to focus on like what's my style, what I like to wear, like how I like to be comfortable, whether I'm working or on the go or at home or, at the gym, whatever. I wanted to wear comfortable pieces that really focused on not only comfort, but just breathability and versatility.
Yeah.
And so on this quest to find clothing that really matched that because I really have sensitive skin, I have allergies, so I really need to stay away from like the polyesters and nylons of the world due to skin irritants. So I was really looking for that, and I found that it was actually really hard to find. I mean, our clothing in stores is you have to really look at what it's made of. It's constantly blends of different, polyesters, which are like essentially gasoline or nylon material, the synthetics. So I thought to myself, I'm going to start making stuff for me. So I, had some friends in the industry who introduced me to like a pattern maker, a sewer, and I was kind of making stuff and eventually found my way to realizing, wow, one, what I'm looking for are sustainable fabrics, natural plant-based fabrics like organic cotton, tencel, modal, even just these like really hemp breathable stuff. And so I also noticed that in pursuit of that, sustainable options are very expensive and
Mhm.
rightfully so in a lot of ways. It obviously is a more premium fabric. It's harder to come by. But it just kind of dawned on me, like, I'd love to offer this to people, especially, women, because I'm a woman and I know how I like to shop, and try to make this as affordable as possible. And that obviously hasn't always been easy, but in finding my factories, which was a whole other situation, and sourcing fabrics and understanding, what I was looking for, I just found myself into realizing I'd like to make this more accessible to women and really focus in on, inclusivity in talking with friends who are, plus size and talking to people who, also feel like sustainable fashion is really expensive. Like just really trying to address those things as best we can and making them ethically was became a big passion project for me.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love that mission. And so, looking for those fabrics, like you said, it was kind of hard to find in retail, but how was the sourcing process for you? Like finding those natural materials and these things that you desired to create this collection out of. Was it just as hard as it is to find, as a consumer?
At first, I will say when you're starting from lights are off, you're looking for the switch kind of vibe. It was definitely hard. I think the first thing I did was, of course, go online and start searching like about fabrics where you can get fabrics. I mean, luckily I live in LA. It's
Yeah.
definitely has a very robust garment industry still. It's a little fragmented, but you can find your way. And there was an LA textile show happening. So I started there and, met some different, mills and vendors who have access to sustainable fabrics.
Yeah.
And I started, and obviously that word sustainability can mean so many things and it's very general.
Yeah.
And so you can go a lot of different ways with it. But for me, I really wanted to focus on plant based because I felt like that was more clear. I could wrap my mind around it. I had access to, those fabrics. And so I just started talking to these different mills, these different vendors, these reps, and starting to figure out what it was I wanted to make. And for me, I'm, like simple things like clean silhouettes, versatile layering. So I started there with like t-shirts, sweatshirts, like French terries, organic cotton, that whole thing. But I will say I am not a designer. I don't call myself that. I'm really looking, I don't even like to call Poplinen a fashion company. I
Mm.
think essentials. I think we're making basics. We're trying to just meet people in their everyday life. And I'm really starting with that milestone. And I think there's a lot of a room in there to continue to innovate in that space. So that's, where we've started with the fabrics and just really making sure like I could trace down certification for those fabrics, whether it was, GOT certified organic cotton or Tencel, trademark Tencel, or understanding if it's ecotech certified, which means there's just like strict standards around the dyeing process and making sure you're using safe methods, things like that. And so that was, I really felt like I got a whole education, like I went to college again
Yeah.
for sourcing fabrics and
Yeah.
a bunch of other things. But it was really important to me that we were being honest and transparent with, when we say we're doing this, this is exactly what we're doing or offering.
Yeah, that transparency is so important. And I love that you mentioned the LA Textile Show because I feel like a lot of emerging designers are like, where do I even go? Like, do I go to the fashion district? Like, where do I go find fabric to source? And I feel like the textile shows are always a great place to just go and like build relationships, go and feel in person, like the fabrications and the trim and all of that. And I'm curious, do you still work with some of those vendors that you found at that initial show?
Yeah, definitely. And I will say, like, absolutely, if find those textile shows that are in maybe a city near you, or if you're in a city, like they are happening. They might be small, but it's always just a stepping stone to the next thing or an introduction to the next place. But I would say in LA, there's, some great, textile resources, like one, rack finders for dead stock, like fabric people are just getting rid of. That's still great. There's also, Laguna Fabrics doing some really cool stuff with sustainability. That's their whole focus.
Yeah.
I still source from a vendor called Kendor for some of my tencils and stuff. So I
Hmm.
will say there's absolutely some who have been in the industry for a long time. They know what they're doing. They're really staying on top of innovation and just continuing to like minimize that impact that we're having on the environment with these newer technologies. So absolutely an exciting time. And I'm always even myself looking for how can we continue to take what we've done and build upon that and do better.
Yeah. And you mentioned too in the beginning about meeting Shova and I, at the, or you knew Shova before, but you guys met me from the pop up. And I think we've, continued to build relationships as we go and navigate through this industry. And I'm curious how that's helped when it comes to sourcing and manufacturing and all that stuff and navigating the industry. Because I find that relationships are so important. And a lot of times as designers, we can be such like, in this like little bubble of we're just going to do everything on our own. But I'm curious like how that helped you as you continue to build out the brand and do all that stuff.
Yeah, I will absolutely say if you're starting out something, and it can be a very isolating journey, as we know. But one thing that I was fortunate to have is just, these friendships that came about that are really have been like colleagues in the industry. And I think that is so crucial to your success is to really build that support system. And there's nothing wrong with, helping others out and learning from each other. At first I was, a little hesitant to like share my ideas, or, I felt like such an imposter and like, what am I
Yeah.
doing? But in just starting to share, with my story with others and hear theirs, and be able to just talk. We get a happy hour together, coffee, and before you know it, you're like, oh my gosh, that problem I had with this production place, and where do I go next? This person recommended a great factory that's better than the one I was working with, or
Hmm.
this person showed me a mill that's doing the same fabric but a little bit cheaper, or things like that are just so helpful when you're doing this, on your own or with a really small team is so great. And there's so many networks out there. I think it's, definitely stepping outside your comfort zone, but knowing that no one has it all together. And
Yeah.
some might be ahead of you, some might be behind you, but you're all doing your own thing, which is great. But it certainly is it's such relief when you can speak into each other and help each other and get feedback or learn from someone else, whether it's from their mistake or them doing something right. Like in that constant flow of sharing, I think you can be so much more successful.
Yeah, for sure. And like you mentioned, I feel like it can feel a little like we're kind of selling to the same customer. Can we like share resources and things? But I find that like everyone is doing something so different in their own unique way. And,
Right.
I feel like when you adopt the collaboration over competition mentality, everyone can go further. Like
Yeah.
everyone's helping
Yeah.
each other out. So I love that and it's so true.
Oh yeah. Like and when you realize you're all in this journey, I mean, like you said, like we're all doing something similar or they overlap, but we really have our unique lens on it. And at the end of the
Mhm.
day, what speaks to my customer, or, might not speak to your customer. And if it does, great. But this customer is always, I realize customers are always buying from all types of brands these days.
Uh-huh.
It's really cool to realize that. And then I'm there like whenever I see a grant come in or something, I'm like forwarding it to, because you don't know what's going to speak to who or what. So it's nice
Mhm.
to just like put it out there in the world and receive whatever comes back to you.
Yeah, that's so true too. Like the more you give, I feel like the more you receive, even if it's just like, giving to another brand. I remember when people do things for me and I'm like, okay, let me like keep this person in mind for something else. So, yeah,
Right.
it's a great principle and it definitely will get you far. So, I love
Yeah.
that advice. So, since starting and since those beginning days of like kind of like hustling, I mean, we never stop, do we? But you have done so much with Poplin, and it's so amazing to see just the brand grow and all of that. And so I've seen recently you guys were on NBC California Live, right?
Yes, that was awesome.
Yes. And you guys have been featured on Good Morning America, The View, like all over the place, including publications. And so you guys have just gotten a lot of media attention. And I think that's something that a lot of people are curious about. Like, how do I get my brand in front of the media? And so I'm curious on how did these opportunities come about and how can like other designers get their feet into some of these things?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I really do enjoy talking about this because I do want to encourage small brands that maybe don't have a budget for, a big PR firm. You really don't need one. I definitely think if you have if you really want to do that and you don't have the time for it at all, or you don't have someone on your team who can help you in, that nitty gritty of building out a strategy, by all means. But I think I've allocated a lot of our funds and a lot of our just strategy to other departments like marketing and finance and, obviously production. So, and I come from a PR background, so I've done
Mm,
communications for other teams. So I had a little bit more of this like ability to kind of speak to it a little bit more and have an idea of what I wanted to pursue. But
Yeah.
I will say if you are not, able to spend money on that, I would suggest, hiring an intern or someone part-time, building out a database of journalists, media people that you want to get in front of. And you want to really look at it as like, okay, I want to get in front of journalists, writers, people who are covering the topics that my company or my brand or my product aligns with, that's complementary. So you don't want to pitch this to a journalist who writes about, I don't know, like AI when you're like maybe a fashion clothing company. You know what I mean? Like you want to and then you want to come up with some ideas of like what your story is. So, for example, the NBC California Live, wonderful
Mhm.
opportunity. So grateful. Layla, the TV journalist who covered it, was excited about the idea. But I really pitched it around, Hispanic heritage, being a Latina woman, small business, and just the story about that, and really wanting to offer sustainability and size inclusivity. And that, obviously was something that spoke to her, and that's how it got covered. So I really kept it in tune with what's happening right now, a
Mhm.
story that is connected to being in California and being an LA made company and things like that. So, building that database, the email, like creating that quick pitch that you can just share. You obviously don't want to inundate or, someone with too much information. They have get pitches all the time. You just really want
Yeah.
to be to the point and then, yeah, see what happens. I mean, I definitely have pitched, dozens of people. You hear back from 1 or 2, but it makes it all the worth it because, you got that coverage, which can be super helpful to your business, right? It's free it's free in the sense of, like, I didn't, pay for that opportunity. It was a,
Mhm.
organic thing, which was so great, and you want those for sure. And it really drives, traffic to your website and, just
Yeah.
really helps scale those opportunities to get more eyeballs on the brand.
Yeah. And how would you say like brands can get in contact with these journalists, like find the emails? Can they go on social media or like what does that look like?
Absolutely, and that's what we do. So, like I said, I usually hire somebody to help me out with just that initial, like, data entry research. So they're going online looking at Instagram profiles, Twitter profiles. A lot of times journalists put their email out there or respond to DMs even because they are looking for their next story that, aligns with what they cover. So you can find it that way. Sometimes you go to Google, you search like, sustainable fashion and then look on the news section and you'll see all the people covering that. And then you want to look at their name and see if there's an email attached or
Mhm.
a lot of times they do offer that. So or they have their own blog with their own work and typically there's like a contact page. So it's a little bit of digging, but it certainly is, the grassroots old fashioned way
Yeah.
of getting in contact.
Yeah, and you want to get in front of them. And I'm sure you've also like gotten people just reaching out to you without you even having to try, right? Like have you had those experiences?
Exactly, that too, and that's something when I first started was like, "Oh, who knows who I am?"
Yeah.
But you really gotta check your DMs, especially the ones that maybe there's not, like, already you follow each other,
Right, right.
because that's where I've missed some opportunities too, where they're just,
Mhm.
"Hey, we saw you on, NBC, and we'd love to cover you here. We'd love to involve you in this market we're doing," and
Yeah.
or, we're doing a story on that was like a women's wear daily opportunity we had
Oh,
during
wow.
COVID. They just reached out and said, "Hey, we're curious like how this is affecting, small businesses and, since you do a lot of in-person events, we'd love a quote." And so things like that, whatever it is, it could go a long way. You never know who's reading, you never know who's
Mhm.
watching. So
So true. But you know what, Des? I think that also has a lot to do with like brand positioning. Like, I think you guys have a very clear brand story for Pop Linen. Like, we know that you guys value sustainability and size inclusivity and, comfort and all these things. And so, what do you have to say about, or like, do you have any thoughts about brand positioning and creating a story around your brand? Because I think that's a lot of the reasons why, like, people are so interested. Like you said, you pitch in a certain way why people are so interested in covering you. Not only do you guys have great clothing, because a ton of people have great clothing, right? Like there's a ton of brands that exist, but there's a reason why you continue to get these opportunities. So can you touch on like just creating a brand positioning and story that like attracts these types of things?
yeah, absolutely. I think it's really comes down to consistency and really distilling what it is. And I've had to learn this too. Trust me, in the beginning, I thought, be all things to all people. And
Yeah.
just like, that is just going to cost yourself before even know it. So I think you really have to like understand the problem you're trying to solve, who that's for, and put it out there in the world and see what customer you're attracting. And then through that, quickly get feedback. Do not be afraid of feedback.
Mhm.
Even myself, initially, like I was really nervous to get feedback. And when I did, it really affected me personally. And
Mhm.
I had to realize, you know what? This is good. This is helpful. Use it. Use what is constructive and build upon that with your next iteration or
Absolutely.
whatever that is. And so I will say that helped me really understand not only what the problem we're trying to solve around, comfortable clothing that is natural and breathable for women, that feels, ultra comfortable and, is accessible for them. And I think, when we finally nailed that down and I felt very confident in not only is that our message, but we're able to deliver on that, that's when I was able to really start like sharing this in, not only a confident way, but in a way that really resonated with our customer or future customers because we had those reviews. We had a product we could stand behind. And that is what you want to build toward very quickly when you launch is really understanding that and just, really quiet out the noises of like trying to be all things or that person's
Mhm.
that. You really got to understand what you're trying to do and the problem you're trying to solve. And that will really help you um,
Yeah.
stay on that journey and get better at it. So that's, and one of the things that helped me do that is joining an accelerator or
Mm.
a group of other entrepreneurs where you're constantly having to share that story, get comfortable with it, accountability around, assignments you have to do to really understand your business model and perfect it.
Yeah. I think another thing you guys do really well too is like not only knowing that customer, but really marketing to that customer. Because even with your branding and the model selections that you choose and all of these things, it speaks to that same customer. Like I can go on your website and say, like, I know who this woman is. You know what I mean? And so I think that like that's something to keep in mind too. I feel like that brand should keep in mind. Like it should all be cohesive. Like the story is not just, the words that you say when you pitch, but like it really like the whole brand tells the story, you know what I mean? And I think
Uh,
like media and press and things like that, they can see that too, or they're drawn to that too.
Thank you. I mean, I definitely think a lot about this, of course. And for me, models from day one was always I want real beautiful women who are just beautiful inside and out and who radiate what we're trying to tell. And it's, I want to be aspirational and inspirational, but I don't want to be inaccessible. And that's always been, our thing. And so using these real women who are so wonderful inside out, like even their personalities, I just love working with these women. And sometimes we find, women, on Instagram or, word of mouth or even, influencers or, collaborators who we just befriended and we're like, you gave us UGC, but we actually think you're really great. Would you want to model for us? So
Yeah.
they come from all over, but I think it's important that your story is being told in every way possible, whether it's a model, whether it's a blog post, whether it's a social media post, whatever. Just like you said, cohesive.
Yeah, that's so good. I'm curious too, while we're still on the topic of like just these media outreach and stuff like that, just to hone in on like the importance of it, what were the results from these experiences? Did you see changes in your business? Was there like increase in sales or, following? Like what did this actually like result in for you getting these appearances?
Oh, definitely. I mean, TV is very powerful. Typically you just see, I mean, for example, Good Morning America. I mean, that helped us hit our I try to have these loose goals every year of
Mhm.
doubling our growth or, tripling our growth, whatever it is, like, and there's like the reaching for the stars goal. There's the
Yeah.
like, do this is great. And, just being on TV, having them seen our clothes, mention it. I mean, people still watch TV. It's a great, like to get your brand out there. I mean, it not only we have sales and it was so amazing like what that brought to us for financial goals and revenue, but also email people subscribing to our
Wow,
email,
yeah, that's so good.
growing tremendously. And they subscribe because they actually do want to follow. They do want to learn more. They do want to make a purchase down the road. Maybe they're not ready for it that second, but they like something and they want to see more of it.
Yeah.
Um, so that was so great. And then also of course social media, um, growing our audience that way, in that very organic way. People eyeballs on your brand, they want to see more, they're following along the journey. So that was, those TV opportunities. I mean, wow, they really made a difference for our brand and really helped us, I think, open up doors to other opportunities.
Yeah.
I think, speaking of like, we did this accelerator with Macy's, and I think part of what helped us get in there was them seeing, wow, you really showed a lot of growth, and utilizing partnerships and opportunities with like media to to scale yourself in a unique way that's not paying for maybe digital ads, which can be very just complicated in itself. So yeah, I will say those were very, very helpful to the growth of my brand. I'm so grateful we got those.
Yeah, and it's incredible that you did all of this without PR. Let me ask you for the Good Morning America, was that an outreach or was that an opportunity that came to you guys that they reached out to you
Yeah,
guys?
great question. It was actually an opportunity. A friend who had a small jewelry line mentioned to me this person that was sort of like a consultant. That her name's Angela, and she has a brand called Fun Brands LLC. And so
Mhm.
I had a meeting with her about kind of some goals I had. And she's like, I really think you should try for, like Good Morning America, like Deals and Steals. And, I have a contact there. We do it. It's a great opportunity, to sell your product in front of new people all across the country. I mean, it's really cool when you see an order coming from some small town in Montana.
Yeah.
Never reached on because, I feel like we're more of a coastal big city kind of brand that
Yeah, for sure.
traction.
Yeah.
So, that was really exciting. But so she helped, pitch us to the show, and the show liked what they saw, and so they picked 2 styles, and, the rest is history. But
Wow.
it was having somewhat of that, like, coach in her to kind of, help me navigate that a little bit, and then from there, the next opportunity well, that was the view, but the next opportunity was with Good Morning America, and that, I was able to pitch on my own and, do that, and now I have relationships with these shows. So
Yeah.
that's, it's sometimes just, knowing someone or someone making a warm intro that
Mhm.
really helps.
Yeah, that's amazing. Good for you. And you mentioned also that you how you leverage this PR and this media attention to get you other opportunities, one being the accelerator that you mentioned with Macy's, which is the workshop at Macy's, which is an amazing program for those of you guys who don't know, for vendor development, and they kind of help you to work on a larger scale, like with department stores like Macy's, and just help you to grow your brand. So I know that you were part of that for this last cohort, and I'm so curious about your experience. I did it as well. And so, but my experience was probably a little bit different because it was during the pandemic. And so,
I can't even imagine what that was like, but
yeah, we didn't get to go to New York. I don't know if you had that experience.
I did go. That was cool.
Oh, so fun. So, yes, you have to tell me all about it because I haven't heard how this has gone since you made the last cohort.
Yeah, so I just finished this last summer, the 2024 cohort. They're actually, just for anyone listening who's wants to get in or wants to apply, I should say, applications are open right now for the workshop at Macy's, and you can just Google that and find the application. I highly recommend you apply if you feel like you're ready for that next step with retail and having a partnership with like a big box retail company. But anyway, so I that was an incredible opportunity. I actually remember when you did it, and I had asked you about it because I was like, wow, that is so cool. Like, it's not easy to get into, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
like serious stuff here that they want to see, what you're talking about, your business, like that you're ready to really take it to the next level. So you really inspired me to apply for it. And it is not an easy application either. And then there's an interview, which is nerve wracking,
Yeah.
but also very good to go through. So I will say, like, I am so glad I did it. It was very beneficial. I think it really helped me fine tune the parts of my business that I really maybe were just weaker muscles that I needed to work on. And then it really helped me understand what I know I'm doing well. And
Yeah.
I will say, like, a big, big goal for me for this year with Poplinen was really forming strategic partnerships with bigger retailers. Again, back to like our mission of being accessible, making Poplin accessible. I really think with these retailers who are storied, who've been around, who really know what they're doing, who are experts in the field, to get our our product on their sites is really important, and it will really help us in our goals of just of getting even our prices down, getting in front of customers who would like this, and doing that in a way that we couldn't on our own.
Yeah, that's great. And so, do you feel like any opportunities have come out of this for you from the workshop at Macy's?
Yes, absolutely. I will say, we are now officially, I can say this, live on Macy's.com
Yay!
for the foreseeable future. And that is so exciting because we've never done anything on that level before. And what was great is I did the accelerator. So I was able to kind of train my way into preparing for this big opportunity. And one thing I didn't mention also was really great about this accelerator was just the network that came with it. So all these
Mhm.
other entrepreneurs of really cool brands, I mean, are doing really cool stuff. We're now on this like WhatsApp messaging chain
Ah,
together.
I love
Really
that.
just sharing information, sharing ideas, like, cheering each other on. And I mean, that was the biggest takeaway I think for me was is that group. I mean, other the great things like building out financial models and things you really need to understand was so helpful. But that was definitely something that I still lean into. Like yesterday, I was, messaging with one of my fellow cohort colleagues and about some questions I had. And so it's really great for that. But I will say, and then there's some more, opportunities that coming up. I can't really share too, just because things aren't finalized, but
Yes.
really excited about it. And, just like looking forward to what this will bring and how this will, change the business.
Yes. And I know you started primarily as a D2C brand, a direct to consumer. And so now you're kind of, you know, jumping into this world of wholesale. Do you think this is, you're going to expand more in this area? Like, did this kind of open your eyes to or mind to more opportunities in wholesale, or what does that look like?
Absolutely. I will say because that was my background, I really was at the initial launch of Puplin and really stuck on running, not stuck, but just really thought that that was the way I was going to pursue this. I had some, initial like stores that wanted to like, buy Puplin and at first I was like, no, we're direct to consumer and
Yeah.
this is how I want to do this. And you just don't know what you know sometimes. And looking back, I'm like, what? I really wish I would have taken those on. But you learn, and I think the retail environment is obviously ever shifting, ever
Oh,
changing.
yeah.
The omnichannel presence is something really important to customers today. They want to see you on, Instagram, but then they want to be able to check you out online, but then they want to be able to go in store and try it on and
Hmm.
want us to be able to make their return, in store, whatever it is. It's just it needs to be super accessible. And I understand that. I shop that way as well. And so it was a big I realized early on that, oh no, we really need to diversify our distribution. And that's important for our success, especially in the way I'd like the company to be run and to, the goals we have in the future. So I would say to anyone who's, we're direct to consumer, just maybe think about the why and, what's that path. And don't be afraid of wholesale. I had a mentor tell me that who's running a very successful company tell me, I don't leave wholesale off the table. Like there's some really great opportunities. And they were right. And so, I really did change my mind on that.
Yeah. And I want to ask you this when it comes to wholesale too. Like, what was the transition like for pricing your products when like shifting from direct to consumer to wholesale? Because I know, that probably was a transition considering you have to have that margin in there for wholesale. So, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, that was the challenge, I will say. So we did have to raise our prices a little bit, but luckily this kind of happened while we've been scaling. So our minimums have increased. So that
Hmm.
has really helped in regards to the price to make things. But I will say still though that obviously making things in LA, making it ethically, like we pay fair wages, like we our margin has it decreased a little bit for a while there. But my goal was to not just like increase prices like,
Yeah.
drastically where our customer really is like, "Whoa, this has changed the whole
Mhm.
perception of Poplin to me." So it's been little by little where it makes sense. And, my goal is to definitely continue to build upon scaling of like how much we make so we can get that price down and then just really getting this distributed like in a bigger way than when we have so that our price we can still absorb that price and also that increase doesn't really hurt our customer.
Yeah.
But that's kind of been the main strategy, but I will say we did have to raise prices a little bit.
Yeah.
No one's complained about it, thankfully. And we do still run promotions here and there to, which our customer does, sometimes look for and gets
Mhm.
excited about, especially with in-person events. We do that just because we also know, hey, you're coming out to see us, you're being intentional, like we're gonna, take 20% off or something.
Yeah.
But that's so far how we've navigated it. And, I will say that it is important that you make sure you have a good margin. So what, I with every style we do, I look at the price of the fabric and the materials we're using, look at the price of what's going to cost us. And then from there, and then what if this product goes wholesale, what percentage they're gonna wanna take, and so that way we still have a decent margin on that, but yeah, it's something that I learned in, my accelerator program with Macy's of how to do that
Mhm.
in a way that, we're still running a good business here.
Yeah, and I think that's something I've always loved about Poplinen. I think your prices were already, like, too affordable to begin with, and so I'm like, I know
I
you
remember
have a little
saying
bit I know you have some margin to work with, so I know it's probably still super accessible, especially for again, you're offering great quality, sustainability, made in USA, which we can't find that often anymore, and so I think it's completely worth it. So I'm glad that you guys were able to, like, kind of maintain that as you scale.
yeah, and to be honest, I think that we will definitely still make a lot of things in LA, but we also are looking abroad to, countries that are doing a great job of, their ethics and making sure standards are high, like,
Mhm.
Portugal, parts of India. One thing, that I was learning a lot about and really diving into in my time at the accelerator with Macy's was just, manufacturing supply chain, like how to do this efficiently, but also keep up our values and our value props, but maybe also looking to some things that are broad where it can be done really well. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we are open, but there's definitely strict guidelines around what that will look like.
Yeah, and I think that's important to mention too, because I don't want it to ever feel like only USA is ethical. Like you can definitely do
Right.
things ethically overseas, just making sure they have those certifications or their manufacturing practices are up to par. So it can, just because it's a different country does not mean it's unethical. And so
Right.
thank you for sharing that too. I'm
Yeah.
curious for you, Des, because you are like such a like superwoman. You are a mom, a wife, like you have so many other things going on. And I always admired that about you because I'm like, how the heck is she doing all of this? I'm like,
No sleep. No sleep. Or you give up a lot of sleep, I should say.
yeah, I'm sure. So I'm curious. And I mean, I don't think anybody like has the formula to this down, the work-life balance formula. Like, how do you balance it all being this, founder and still actively working in your business and having a family? Like, what does that look like for you?
Yeah, I will say honestly, I definitely am not the expert. I don't have it mastered. I don't think, anyone does. I think we're all just figuring it out. But I will say I have an incredible partner in my husband, Steven. He is so supportive of what I do. If he was not, there is no way I could be doing this because this
Mm,
requires me being away some weekends or, it requires me working during the week. So I'm not, able to like, especially when our girls were younger, like we definitely needed help with childcare or our youngest is in preschool. That's not cheap, obviously. Fortunately, we're not there yet with free preschool, but hopefully we're getting there.
yeah.
For other working moms, but and he's an entrepreneur himself, so I think we both are comfortable in taking risk and in the chaos.
Yeah.
Obviously, the more calculated, the better, but having his support and then also just I do like working and I know the sacrifices that entails and I just am very keep in we keep in check with what those sacrifices are, what we're okay with, what we're not. And I haven't gone at this crazy big speed. Part of why I've really kept investment at bay, not that like anyone's pounding down the door, but I didn't really pursue that hardcore was because I knew that this was going to go at a pace that I could embrace. And
Hmm.
so, so we've scaled with like grants, we've scaled with, business loans, traditional. We've scaled, just with like my own personal, what I put into the company, my own, investment and just have really grown it in a way that it feels like it's stuff we can take the next bite out of,
Yeah.
and that's been important to me. I don't know what the future holds, but in regards to that, but I know that I've had a good pulse on things so that if I need to miss a Tuesday, I can do that. And I don't, feel this crazy pressure of work needs me more or whatever. But I do think that you will make sacrifices and it is challenging. And I'm so grateful that, my family supports this and I do have a community of family here locally that I can lean on, including my parents. And that's super important, I think, when you're, have little ones, like you need the
Yeah.
help. So if you're pursuing this and it's hard, like you really have to be honest with the sacrifice it's going to take and just hopefully have like, if you're in a relationship partner who really understands like you need to pursue this and is supportive of that
Yeah.
and there'll be hard times, but you always got to just go back to like, okay, check-ins. What do we value? Are we good? How do we move forward in this? Or these next weeks are going to be really tough. Let's hold on and, we'll be on the other side. Just really understand that it's an ebb and flow. It's like a roller coaster, honestly, but that's how we've been able to get through it. And if there wasn't so many encouraging signs and growth and just I think just these great opportunities that have come along, I think I would not be here today. So you have to have those check-ins of like, okay, well, we need to see this for us to keep going. And then if you see that, keep going,
Yeah.
the green lights. Otherwise, yeah, it would be really hard.
Yeah, I love what you said about like just having that support system. And I think that's so important because it does turn into like a family business. Like everyone is involved. And so you have to have everyone on board for sure. So that's super
Definitely.
encouraging. So I'm curious, how many years has it been now for Poplinen? 7 years? 6 years?
No, actually it's been 5. It's
5
almost 5.
years.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to like
20,
calculate how
yeah.
far ago, how long ago that pop-up was, and I can't, I still can't
Yeah, no,
remember.
it feels like it was forever ago, but I also was thinking about that as you were talking, like, when was that? It was I wanna say, like, right before COVID, like, I
Yeah.
kind of soft launch, was messing around with Poplinen in 2019, and then COVID was, like, the year I really, like, put the store together in an official way and had more products, but,
Yeah.
so it was, like, about 5 years ago,
5
yeah.
years. And you've done so much in 5 years, but I'm sure that you've also learned a whole lot because so much happens in that time, especially when you're just learning and navigating. And I'm curious, like, what is like one of like, the most important lessons that you've learned so far in this journey?
I will say oh my gosh, there's so many, but I think an important lesson I learned was to really trust myself. And I actually just told this to a friend another day, like really trust that I'm capable of doing things that I think at first I was like, oh, I got to hire the expert or
Hmm.
which there's nothing wrong with that. But I think sometimes is this something I can figure out and,
Hmm.
maybe save money on, or I know that like, for example, I had no idea about production when I first started. And it was really important for me to understand all the different components of how to develop a style because I was leaning a lot on a person that I don't think fully was figuring it out themselves or
Mm.
wanted to be, the expert, but this is my company and no one is going to care about it the way I do. And so
Yeah.
if I can at least first understand it, then I know how to speak into it. And that was really important. So I think it's like really leaning into even the hard things like financial models, the finance side, not my favorite thing.
Yeah,
But
me either.
yeah, it's not fun, but
No.
I had to like train myself to be like, it is fun, or at least it's manageable.
Yeah.
And I need to understand it to have a clear path forward and to know like how to price my items, to know like if this fabric makes sense or should I pick an alternative, whatever it might be. But I early on hired a bookkeeper and then eventually an accountant to really help me just really understand all this stuff because it really is important to the business. So whether it's, trusting myself to really get the job done or to trust myself to hire the right people when the time is right, or really understanding where my skill set lies and what I need to work on or either get the help on. And
Yeah.
that's important. There's so many other things I'm sure I could also speak into, but I will say it's really that's a good starter.
Yeah. And for someone who is like starting out today, let's say like you 5 years ago, who's just starting out in this industry, like what would you tell that person? What is a piece of advice that you would give them from the very beginning or maybe something you would do differently?
I would definitely say it's not easy and it's going to require a lot of work, and you might have instant success, and that I'm like yes when that happens to someone because that's incredible. But I think knowing that there's going to be ups and downs, like I mean still to this day, one day there'll be this amazing news and then hours later or the next day terrible news, and you
Yeah.
have to be able to mentally equip yourself to be ready for that. And I think it's so easy to just get lost in that or just get super down or just get spiral from the stresses. And so if you can really go into this and mentally understand what it's going to require of you and be okay with the ups and downs, and if you know that that's maybe hard for you to surround yourself with a network of supportive either people or other entrepreneurs or a mentor or accountability, because things will change. It's an ebb and flow. You're learning all the time. You'll make mistakes, but you got to get back up quickly and turn that around. You have to be able to understand really stressful things will come about and you'll want to panic, but you have to just take it day by day, moment by moment, choice by choice. And then you can start to see this grow. But you got to be, and that's why I'm glad I kind of started it now as versus my early 20s, because I
Yeah.
think I would have been a hot mess. But after getting some experience under my belt,
Yeah.
like working with others and going through and just like really developing my skill set, it helped me go and being a mom too, like, it's really helped me understand how to endure stress, how to, you know, solve on the go, and just understand my why, really, understand your why, because that is gonna be the North Star when you're in those dark nights of the soul about, "What am I
Yeah.
doing?" And if you really believe that you are solving a problem and you want to see this through, that will get you there.
What would you say your why is? What keeps you going?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely believe, like I just mentioned, my girls, like I'm a mother of 2 girls, and I wanna see a better world for them. I want them to enjoy our planet and be good stewards of it. I didn't grow up really learning that. It's something I developed as obviously we hear about climate change, always we see, these beautiful parts of our world being destroyed because, just of all the pollution in the world, and these things are so real. And think about my girls and what they're going to inherit. And if I can really help be a part of that change in a way that's positive and teaching
Mhm.
people from a standpoint of like not condemning them or not shaming them, but really helping them to get excited about what we can do to make a difference is important. And I'm always teaching them about, gardening or, picking up trash or how we respect our environment or, taking them on hikes to really enjoy nature and how sacred it is and how it's our job to move it forward and make sure it's there for future generations. So that's a big why for me. And
Yeah.
just again, just making this accessible to people. Like it shouldn't just be a privileged thing. So it's a big goal.
I love that so much. So what's the future? Like what's next for Poplinen?
Oh man, I will say, it's again, it comes down to making pop linen more accessible, but also like going into other categories. So really making this a lifestyle brand. I do get men or, the partners of some of my customers be like, hey, when are you gonna do a men's sweatshirt or shirt? Or man, I love this in my size. And
Mhm.
sometimes our stuff fits that men. And I'm like, great. But I'd really love to do that. We started to dabble with children's with like the, leftover fabric we've had from our women's, and that's been incredibly successful because obviously we have moms coming in or
Mhm.
aunties or, friends who want to get a gift for their friends' kids. And So that's been really cool seeing that being a great category to open up to. And, also in home, I think there's a lot of, when I look at my home, I'm like, oh, we could do something there, or that can be improved, or like, sheets, like having like really, cozy, comfortable sheets that are obviously sustainable. Like just thinking of all these different ways we can, hit people's lives and, be a solution to them is exciting for me.
Yeah.
I think also just innovation. Like I think, we've come a long way with like our natural fabrics, but I think there's so much room. And I get excited about one day being able to develop our own fabrics and
Mhm.
what that can look like, and just continuing to innovate in this space. There's so much room. So that really excites me for the future and, the next couple years. And of course, I'm starting to think more about a store. For a long time I hesitated
Hmm.
about that. But, and obviously that is a big commitment.
Yeah.
Really starting to narrow down, I think, a lot of where I'd want that to be, what that I want that experience to look like, and what we can offer. So all those things excite me.
Well, I'm excited for anything that's made from poplinen fabric. So
Oh, thank you. I know we just came out with these hats that say "Stay soft," and
I
then
saw that. So
yeah,
cute.
and just driving that message of like, gosh, I love being comfortable, and I'm working every day, but I've got to be in like something where I'm just not ready to like rip it off when I get home.
Yes.
I wanna be able to transition day to night, so I'm always thinking about that aspect, like soft, comfortable, and but also, like, staying soft, just, as people, like, being still I know the world can be so tough sometimes, but just keeping that side of ourselves, that's kind to others, gentle with thinking putting other people first, like, thinking of the whole collective as opposed to just ourselves, I think is an important message.
Yeah, well, we can all use that hat and a
Yeah,
lot of other things that say stay soft, so we're excited about that. How can
put
we
it everywhere.
find Yeah. So tell us how we can find you, how we can shop Stay Soft and all the other amazing comfortable pieces that Poplinen has to offer.
Yes. So that the easiest way is poplinen.co. That's our website. Obviously, now we're on Macy's.com, so that's another place to
Yay.
find us. And, at Poplinen is our Instagram where we announce everything we're doing, everything we're up to. Yeah. And if you happen to check us out, please use discount code MGF20 for 20% off anything in the store. So love, but we also let people who just want to check out our newsletter, see what's going on, first get a feel for us. So yeah, but we try to be, in all places for everybody.
Yes, and thank you so much for offering us that sweet discount so we can get all of our Poplin stuff, and definitely sign up for the email list so you can stay in touch with all the great things happening. I know you mentioned there's stuff that is happening that you can't allude to yet, so we will stay connected with you so we can see all the things to come from Poplin. But thank you so much, Des. This was such a amazing episode. You've given us like so much value. This was like a masterclass in itself for startups. And so thank you for offering all of your knowledge and wisdom.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Hey, fashion entrepreneur. Did you know that at makegoodfashion.com, we've curated a library of free resources to help you uplevel your fashion business? Yep, that's right. Just head over to makegoodfashion.com and hit free resources to gain access to our selection of checklists, guides, and downloadable PDFs to help you on your fashion business journey. We have resources to help you find a manufacturer, production checklist, brand identity style guides, and much more. So make sure to head over to makegoodfashion.com or hit the link in the description to get your hands on those resources.